Chapters.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Calvin and in this week's video I'm welding together a up and over set piece. So this pipe has 4 45s on it, and then the run travels along, it goes up a set and then it runs along a bit more and then back down a set. So usually a pipe like this would be used to go up and over pipes obviously, or in and around bits of structure that's in the way. It also has a 1-inch stabbing coming out of it, and I weld that last. But before I get too into the video, if I do sound weird, it's because I'm currently recovering from an ear infection and I'm literally deaf in one ear, so I can just hear it echo in my voice. But yeah, back to the video. So I've tacked my 45s onto my homemade square. That square is just it holds both faces of the 45 level, and I can tack it so I don't have to hold it. Once I get my 2 tacks on, I can stand the pipe up like this. So in order to get the right measurement for the set, I need to find the center to center mark, but eyeing it up is an unreliable way of doing it. So what you see me doing here, I've got my set standing up in the table, and then I can put the square on it and I can measure from the top of one part to the top of the other part. So that there translate to center marks. So I find this an easier way of making sure that I get the right set, so I can then adjust the tacks, make everything level and tack it together. So when I move on to my next steps, I know my set is the right measurement, meaning the pipe's the right measurement. I try to include as much welding footage as I can get into the videos, but I don't want my channel to be a welding tutorial page. I just want to show you what I do, like a journey of my welding. And it would be a bit incomplete if I don't at least show you the welding, but I do want to focus more on the fabrication sides. So here I'm doing a short circuit arc weld. I'm running at 140 amps, which translate to 17.7 volts, 6 meters a minute, and I'm using M24 argon mix. I think it's 12% CO2. I'm using 1 mil wire. It's a copper free coating. So the routing process for me, because I've been doing it for so long, is kind of easy. I'm maintaining a hand position and rotating the pipe, and then I'm trying to fill this gap up together without it blowing through, while also trying to put a root in it. So I'm basically welding the inside of the pipe from the outside, and I achieve that by something called the keyhole. Other people's got different terms, but basically what happens, the intense heat from the arc melts the metal away, creates a hole, and then you deposit your metal in to replace it, which creates the weld bead. So countless times a second you see a hole being created from the heat, and then that hole gets filled up, and it's a balancing act to keep that hole there, so you know you're getting a root in while filling it up and moving on. If you stand still, too much builds up, drops through, and yeah, it's just a delicate balancing act, and you get used to it after a while. So once I root it, I move on to capping. So I cap this at 6-inch, so it's going to be around 200 amps. It's pulse welding, which is why you don't see any splatter. The technique, you could say, is similar to the routing, as in you hold your hand in position and then you rotate the pipe away from you, but there's a few key differences. Like, I rely on my settings to make sure I've got a nice smooth weld while maintaining a stationary hand position. I do weave back and forth. It's kind of a habit. I don't like to be too still, just in case I'm doing anything wrong, then the whole weld would come out bad. So by me moving backwards and forwards, I change the variables ever so slightly, that if I am doing a bad weld, I can force at least a nice cap on it, if that makes any sense. But when I'm welding my molten pool, I'm waiting until both edges of the molten pool touches both sides of the pipe, and then I can move on, because there's still metal being transferred further back that you can't see, that's already starting to solidify. So as long as it touches both sides and you move on, then you can hopefully guarantee your welds can come out nice. But in this game here, it's never a guarantee that every weld is going to come out perfect. You're only as good as your last weld, so what you want to do is just make your average weld good, because everyone can do a bad weld and everyone can do a really nice Instagram worthy weld, but it's your average welds that you want to be proud of. So as long as your average welds are good, you've got nothing to worry about. So now I'm moving on to the fabrication. I've put my first piece of pipe in the vise, and now I'm just leveling up my 45. Usually when I'm fabricating pipes, I don't look at my level in the center of the bubble. I always have my pipe offset to one line or the other. I find this it's easier for me to know I'm touching the line on the left, for example, than trying to level it to the bubble, because if you lot use a level a lot, you know the center isn't center. You got center to the left a bit, center to the right. You've got so much other alternatives than just center. At least when I'm fabricating, I know it's touching the line on the left, and then I can go by that. But when I'm dealing with 45s, that's when I always put everything in the center, because it's harder to level up 45s than it would be a standard hockey stick, for example. Just a straight pipe with a 90-degree bend. That's way easier to level up. So yeah, when I'm dealing with 45s, I'm making sure the level shows it's in the center. One technique I also do as well, I don't leave my pipe in the final position that I tack it at. So you see I'm going to put this tack on the top. It's touching the line on the right, and then I'm going to remove one of the V-stands and I'm going to adjust the other V-stand, because when you weld, the welds shrink. So by doing the tack on the top, now it wants to shrink. Now I've gone past the possibilities of how much it would ever shrink, and now I'm welding the bottom, and then the V-stand should stop it from shrinking further the opposite direction. So it just removes the variability of it being able to shrink. So here again, now I'm double checking, making sure that the set that I done earlier was fine, and it's also helping me to level off the 45. So if that was the wrong measurement, bigger or smaller, then I would have raised the 45 up or down, but it was fine, so I can tack it on. And then now I can just level off this piece of pipe, and I know it's running true and the set is correct. Now if the set was wrong and I do adjust the pipe because I didn't fabricate it correct earlier, what tends to happen, your overall length of the pipe changes. So if you for example lower the 45, so here if I was to adjust the 45 to make the top of it lower, the overall length would grow. Same for if I was to raise the top higher, it will shrink. Sometimes you can catch the measurements on flanges, but say for example I had to raise the pipe up, shorten it, and then there was another fitting going on the other side like an elbow, that changes the overall. And here I'm being lazy, so you can see it's over the line on the right. That's me being lazy, not wanting to put a V-stand underneath to adjust it at least touching the line. But I use the two same levels. I use my long level as a straight edge, and then I check the bubbles using the two of the same levels. When I first started to do YouTube, people looked at me weird recording, but every now and again, my saw guy here for example likes to pop in to get their face on camera. But here's the only footage I've got of my route. I forgot to record it. The route itself, for the most part, it's okay. It's a class 2 job, so that allows for leeway in the quality of the route. So for example, from my understanding, you can miss 25mm of route per 100mm of weld. Now I don't aim for that, I don't try to do that, but it's just that's the code that is too. And I'm not sure, I don't think it's actually a class 2 weld. It's a BS code, but I don't remember the BS code, and I think it's just shortened down, and everyone understands what a class 1 and class 2 weld is, at least the people I know. So yeah, so the welding, it's not nothing too crazy. It's all low pressure going through here, chilled water probably, so that's why it's thin pipe and it can be welded with MIG for example, and a MIG route. Once you start going into chemical plants, oil and stuff like that, then it's welded to way higher specifications. But back to the video, I think that's pretty good, rotating around without any distortion. But all that's left now is to quickly buzz up these final 4 butt welds, so then I can put my flanges on, weld them up, and also put my drain on. To save time, I've done all 4 welds together like this, and I'm even practicing welding with my left hand. I like to every now and again just push my skills, try something new that I've not done. So yeah, left hand welding, I'm reasonably good at it. Some positions I can't do, but it's all practice. I'm constantly practicing myself, trying to do new ways, learn new things. This YouTube has definitely made me a better welder. It's because I know you guys are watching, I'm having to weld better than I would, because like I've said in some of my previous videos, I get paid on price. So I get paid for every pipe that I complete. Each size pipe has its own price for each type of weld. Each one of these 6-inch butt welds you see me do has a price which is different to the price of a flange. So I'm trying to work as fast as I can while keeping my quality up there, while also making money. So it's a gamble, it's a compromise. You compromise in certain places for speed, and that's just the nature of the way I get paid, and that's just one of them things that I have to do. So I try not to compromise so much on quality. I try to push my skills, my fabrication skills higher, so that I can try to compensate for the way I get paid and the time it takes to do a top quality weld. But yeah, back to the video. I've just measured my overall length, and I've minused what it should be from the measurement, and it means the flanges have to hang at 13mm in order to make the face-to-face measurement correct. So I just use my chalk mark to pull it at 13mm, mark on the back, and here is real time me fitting a flange. So I put my 2 bolt holes in, I level off the flange. I'm trying to be as delicate as possible, just to get it mostly in the right position. And then now I'm grabbing my torch, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to angle the flange backwards. What that does is opens up a gap at the top, so then when I tack and then I use my thumb to pull the flange back to being level, that saves the gap that you've got at the top. So it stops there being no gap between the flange and the pipe at the top and a huge gap at the bottom. It almost kind of centers the flange to the pipe, and it makes a more even gap the whole way around. So now I'm just going to check the face of the flange. We use levels because the guys who check the pipe use these levels. So yeah, we don't use flange squares. So what that means is whatever kinks are in the pipe, they stay in the pipe, rather than a flange square squaring the flange to the end of the pipe and almost pulling kinks out of the pipe when you tighten it. But yeah, the second side is on. I'm just double checking the overall length, and then I think I've rotated the pipe 90 degrees, and now I'm just going to run through, just make sure everything's level before doing the flanges. And like I said, I level my pipe to one side of the bubble, so in this case here it will be the bubble on the right. Then I just need to use my hammer to adjust the flange to level it off. And no, I don't hit the face of the flange anytime you see me using the hammer. I only ever do the edges where the bolts will go, really. I'm not silly enough to hit the face of the flange with a hammer. I had a comment of a guy thinking that's what I was doing. So here's the other side, same thing, adjusting the face of the flange, making sure it's all level. And then I can move on to putting on the socket. One quick tip, if you're ever putting on flanges, make sure when you do the 2 tacks they're completely opposite from each other, because when you rotate the pipe 90 degrees and then you then attempt to like what I done, level off the flange, if they're offset like a diagonal angle, the bolt holes slowly twist when you move it. So as long as they're completely opposite each other, you should be able to adjust it as much as you want without the bolt holes moving. So say worst case scenario, you have one side of the flange twist one direction and the other side of the flange twist the other direction. There's a high chance that the 2 bolt holes aren't level anymore, and then the piece will be condemned if you've welded it together. Now moving on to my 1-inch drain, I just by eye, I'm putting this all on by eye. It doesn't need to be amazing, and I've done enough of these that you could see that I just took the piece itself, eyed it up, chopped the right prep onto it, and then fitted it up, and then it's all good. So just cutting into it. I'm going to deburr it inside. Clients and stuff, they don't like a lot of swarf and stuff on the inside. One, because it can eventually break off and get caught up in the strainers, and two, enough of this stuff in a system, it affects the flow rates, and these systems are commissioned to have certain flow rates, and the pipes are designed to run at a certain flow. That's why, like short radius elbows, for example, you put as little of them in as possible, because that's such an abrupt 90-degree bend that it messes with pressures and flow rates significantly. So now just making sure the stabbing's in the right spot. If this stabbing was sticking up vertically, I could put it in position without having to rotate the pipe, but because it's horizontally, I like to put a tack at the top corner, not directly at the very top, because I want 4 tacks on this to hold it in position. So I tack offset to the top, and then that allows me to flip the pipe 90 degrees, level off the other orientation of the stabbing, and then flip it back to this position here, and then level off the horizontal levelness of it. Now with it being flipped, it allows me to put a tack on the opposite direction to the first tack, and then now it's as simple as leveling off the height of it, and I can put my final 2 tacks at the bottom corners. I've got such a big gap on this fitting to try to make sure I can get a nice root in there. And try as I might, I cannot push a root in to save my life. I've tried over and over again. People say, why do you stove, why do you root in that direction? And I don't understand. It's so hard to push a root in with such thin wall pipe that I've got here. It just blows through instantly. So that's why you can call it stoving, but I wouldn't necessarily say I'm stoving the pipe, because it's still at a significant flat angle. It's not like I'm welding from top downwards. So this was welded at the same root settings that I would do a butt weld at, 140 amps, and then now I'm just going to cap it. So I'm going to cap it at around 160 amps. It doesn't need to be high, because the stabbing is so thin, it can't handle the heat. Anything more than that, you just blow through it. So around 160 amps is good enough. One thing I'm taking extra care on is making sure I get nice fusion at the very bottom, because the way how the pipe is, you can't get your shroud in there deep enough. So you need to weld as much of it as you can, and then overlap as much of it as you can on the other side. Now it's time to weld the flange. For the sake of trying to make a nice weld, I've got my little tripod here, but it didn't work. The pipe was running forwards because the rollers weren't completely aligned, so the pipe was tracking back and forth. But here's a video that I made for my Instagram, and this is how I would have done it, and the welds, they come out beautifully. But I've just done it this way here, where I hold it. It's a harder weld to do, because you're resting your torch on the most smallest sliver of metal while trying to weld it and not move too much. It's a difficult weld to do, but the welds come out beautifully when they're done, especially for freehand. I'm happy with that. But this is the video finished now. If you want to see more clips and little shorts of videos that I do, follow my Instagram. Way more videos and photos on there. But with that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you lot in the next one.